Here we go, part 1. This is chapter 9, and we're having an overview of muscle tissue. Really, it's going to be focusing on skeletal muscle, although we also have smooth muscle throughout our digestive system, for instance. And we also have, for instance, cardiac muscle. So these are muscle types. And we're going to look at the overall general characteristics first, but then we're going to get really specific about the skeletal muscle. So we're at 277 here, looking at special characteristics, and of course excitability. You can actually just tap a muscle sometimes and get it to function. Okay, so we actually have receptors that are embedded in muscle for that very purpose. Give it a little yank, and it has a reflexive contraction. So, or push against it. That's particularly true of smooth muscle in the kidney, where if you have enough blood pressure that you might actually do injury to the capillaries of the kidney, then the afferent arterioles will actually contract a little bit to protect those downstream distal capillaries. Okay, contractility. This is an important detail because we have contractility, which is the province of muscles, but they do not lengthen. They are extensible, but you need, especially the case of skeletal muscle, you need an antagonist. That is to say, you have biceps, which can bend your elbow, but then you need triceps to, unfold yourself, because the biceps cannot do the opposite of contracting. Once it's contracted, it's sort of there, right? You can relax, and the weight of your forearm will bring the muscle back into its extended state, but without gravity, if you're lying in bed, you're going to have to use the triceps to get those elbows straight again. Okay, so this is a little problem. Now, of course, if somebody has a deficit, an injury to a nerve that serves a particular muscle group, like the extensors, which is a common finding in people who fall out of trees and stuff like that, they get a spiral fracture that injures the radial nerve. Suddenly they can't do any extension in their particularly in their forearm and fingers and hand, and so they're stuck with just the flexors of the upper extremity. And so we'll talk about that when we get to those particular muscles, that some people have contractures because they don't have a balanced system where they have the contracting muscle and the antagonist to straighten it out. Okay, extensibility then, very important. Elasticity, we actually use elasticity quite a bit, recoil and stuff like that, especially with breathing. So there's some of that going on. And so the ability of muscle cells, that is to say, to recoil and resume its resting length after stretching. So there is a certain degree of elasticity with regard to that. Functions. We produce movement. Okay, the heart moves blood, the skeletal muscles move the body in various ways, and of course the digestive system relies on smooth muscle to move food. Okay, so then maintaining posture and body position, even if you are just sitting or standing still, you are still using muscles to maintain the posture of the body in a particular position. Okay, sometimes you lift your arm in order to do something like writing at the blackboard, right? So your hand has to be in the position at the correct height so that you can actually do what it is that you're doing at that location with the hand, right? So positioning the body is important. Stabilizing the joints are especially important. People who are well exercised and have good muscle tone have stable joints. A lot of times when you're just starting your season at a sport, or you're going to a new job that is a physical job, it's possible to hurt yourself while you're getting in shape. Okay, so getting in shape actually is the time when most people get injured. Okay, then generating heat, I use this all the time, especially on a windy day in San Francisco, walking through the neighborhoods in the parks. It gets a little chill, just walk uphill. That's what I always say. As soon as you're walking uphill, then you're generating heat, and you're all getting nice and toasty, right? So, in fact, you have to, that's why we have little backpacks when we're out walking in the Bay Area, because of the microclimates. We're taking on and off all of our jackets and sweaters and stuff like that and stowing them in our little backpacks and then pulling them out again, etc. Okay, so there's that. Now we're diving into skeletal muscle. Okay, so skeletal muscle is a discrete organ. So when we talk about biceps, for instance, or any of the other individual muscles, those are organs. Okay, they are collections of tissues. Okay, they have a nerve and a blood supply that we'll be learning. And, okay, so there's all of these little details here. Now, here's some things that are worth noting is the connective tissue has different nomenclatures. On the outside of the muscle organ, we have the epimysium surrounding. The perimysium surrounds the internal portions of a muscle called fascicles, and the endomysium surrounds the individual muscle cells, which we actually refer to as muscle fibers. Okay, so I'm going to have to ask you to make an adjustment in your own sense of how you speak about muscle and meat, shall we say. Okay, now this is a really fabulous, this is this is like magical literature of Gabriel Garcia Marquez or something. This is an impossible drawing, because why? Because this is a gross anatomy feature out here. This is a femur. This is your thigh bone right there, and then suddenly we're down looking at individual fascicles here, and then here's a muscle cell which is totally microscopic, and then here are these little myofibrils, which are really submicroscopic. They're all about electron microscope microscopic, right? It's all in one picture, which of course no camera can capture that. So try not to be, how shall I say, out of alignment with all of this. This is just the artist engaged in trying to explain something. Okay, so you could get really, how shall I say, the wrong idea. Another detail here is if you look at a roast of meat, for instance, and I need to put these in those terms because I need to make you see what is familiar to you, is that we have what we call fibers, right? Normally when we're slicing meat, especially for our children, because our children have deciduous teeth, hard for them to chew meat very well, and so we slice the meat across the grain, as it were, there across these fibers. Now, we're not going to call these fibers anymore. We're going to be calling them fascicles, right? And so now when you're slicing the meat for your child, you'll be saying, "I'm cutting across the fascicles, dear." Okay, so it's easy for you to chew. So that's something to bear in mind, and to, you can actually say that. Okay, so then here we have the epimysium on the outside here. Do you see that? Epimysium, connective tissue on the outside of the organ. Then we have what's called a fascicle here. This is perimysium, connective tissue wrapping around the fascicle. This is a fascicle, perimysium, going around. Okay, and then here we have the individual muscle cell. And the muscle cell is quite unique and interesting because it is highly organized and arranged in a longitudinal manner. And it looks like it's packing a whole bunch of number 2 pencils there. And kind of has that look. The deal is that the muscle cell is in fact a syncytium. I don't have the word written out here. I don't see it. No, I don't. Okay, so This is many cells that has become one cell. So we're going to have to meditate on that as we turn the page slowly. But, oh, I do have it written here, yes. Syncytium. Great hangman word if you're playing hangman. Look at those Y's. Syncytium. Okay, we'll come back to that in our next part.